Hi, this is Mike, and welcome back to StreetKillz Video Chronicles, Monster Olds. I'm getting a lot of emails on Facebook and the website and all that. People asking a lot of questions about this car. How do we do certain things? So Theo and I, we're gonna go over some of the particulars about this build. So people, maybe we'll answer some of the questions that people are having, because I guess a lot of people are doing 66 olds. I think they're asking in general about 60s vehicles and LS1s. So we're going to go over a few things in here to show you some of the tricks that we did to get it to fit in this car. This car was really hard because there was no precedence for this car. So a lot of the stuff we had to custom make. We put the motor in and pulled it out what?
Like a couple of times, 3-4 times.
3-4 times. So I mean, it was in, out, in, out, in, out. This didn't fit, that didn't fit, so we were welding, we were fabricating, we were doing a lot of different stuff. So, without further ado, we'll go over it. We're going to start at the bottom of the vehicle, and we'll show you some of the stuff we did, notching the frame, stuff like that. The hardest part was the suspension. Was the toughest part on this gig. Well, and the fact that we had to use a truck oil. So we'll get her up here and we'll show you what we had to do. That's good right there, Theo. We used a lot of F-body parts. I wanted to keep it simple for the customer so he didn't have to go and buy all these different parts. You know what I mean? We wanted to try to keep all F-body, LS1, Firebird Camaro, 98 through 04. The radiator is actually, this one's actually like a 96 Firebird Camaro. It's a thicker core. A trick that a lot of people don't know is that they use the 96 radiator in a newer Camaro Firebird. It's actually got a thicker core. It's the same radiator. We had to drop down the radiator support, cut them off, re-weld them to fit this radiator. But other than that, I mean, it wasn't that tough. It was just
a couple of spacers.
Just getting it to fit, you know what I mean, was the hardest part. But once we got it to fit, we knew we could take the top flashing and put it wherever we wanted, and angle the radiator however we wanted to get it to fit. So then the front suspension, we'll throw it up a little bit more. We show the radiator. The front suspension was actually really hard. We recommended a rack and pinion. It would have been actually easy to install a rack. We actually had to cut the frame down a lot. The frame came to a point. The suspension kept hitting the oil pan. So we actually dropped it down with a bracket. Then we had to drop the other side down to equal it out so it didn't get bump steer, which is a common thing that a lot of Gen 4 swaps get bump steer. So my opinion on the bump steer is because the power steering pumps pump a lot harder. So the gearbox is working overtime and it's not used to that kind of pressure. But we welded a little plate. Once again, this job was kind of on a budget, so we couldn't get too tricky with it, and spend a lot of hours on things, so we did it really fast and efficient. It's an ugly bump plate, but I promise you this, if he hits something, you're not gonna get the oil pan. This is actually really thick, really sturdy. It's welded into the frame. We had to notch the frame at an angle, so it's not all that straight and perfect, but it'll serve the purpose. It was made just to stop stuff from hitting the oil pan. Pretty simple. Then, what do you think, in your opinion, Theo, what was the hardest part of this build?
I would say the hardest part of this build was probably making the headers fit.
That's what I'm thinking too, because it was in and out, in and out. We had to have a guy on top of the lift just holding headers all day. But what we did is we took this suspension component right here, the bracket for the lower control arm. We cut it, then beat it down and welded it back. We had to make sure we still have mobility, but it serves the purpose. Preferably you would get an AFCO, tubular suspension, component lower control arm and move it wherever you wanted it. But like I said, this build was on a budget. So we did the same thing over here. You can actually see this weld a little bit better. These used to come out to about right here, and we just rolled them. We made sure, you know, we disconnected everything and made sure that the suspension had, you know, had plenty of travel. The other thing is we had to cut the frame and notch the frame substantially to get it to work. If you look, the frame comes all the way out, almost to the middle of the header. We box welded in here and honeycombed it, so it still has, its strength. Then the other thing is we use F-body motor mounts and F-body Camaro Firebird actual, you know, the actual mount that mounts to the frame. Those actually unbolt on the K-member. So a lot of people get rid of their K-members because they go tubular. So these are actually, you can get these supports here everywhere. So check this side out, it's pretty good too. We just welded them in, and now he can just change. He can just go get a motor mount, an F-body motor mount, and everything's good. F-body radiator, everything's good. The driveline is actually custom fabbed. This was a pain too because there's a bunch of different style. Customer wanted to run a Turbo 400, you know, which they're great transmissions. We would have preferred the 4L60 because it's a little bit easier to do with the swap. But, you know, we'll cater to you. We had to cut the driveline 2 or 3 different times and have the driveline company come out and cut it and rebalance it and cut it and rebalance it. But other than that, you know, it works pretty good. The cool thing about the standalone system that we used, we don't have to use a vehicle a speed sensor. So the computer does not need the speed sensor. It comes with it for the harness, but you don't need it. Then Theo did a gnarly job on this bracket for the shifter, because we tried to use the OEM shifter, we welded, we cut, it just wasn't working. So Theo actually custom fabbed that and bent it up. Then Theo did the fuel system. Go ahead and tell them about the fuel system, Theo.
The fuel system here, we got an MSD inline fuel pump. It's good up to 600 horses, and we use this basic 3/8 fuel line hose. And then our wiring harness, it supplies a power wire, so it's an easy setup. And then we got a universal fuel filter, and it goes up to our Aeromotive fuel pressure regulator.
Let's get to the regulator, man. We'll drop her down.